Right guys, good evening and welcome back to Thai Talk with Dan, the channel where we share your stories. Today I've got a long one, but it's absolutely awesome again. I mean, yesterday's was really good. Today's literally had me in stitches. It's a very funny story, guys, so get a comfortable seat, stick the kettle on, grab a beer, put your dinner on your lap, whatever it takes, sit down, chill out, relax, and I'll read the story. Let's get into it. Hello Dan, I'm somewhat of a new viewer, but I've binge watched most of your videos now, and I genuinely think they contain a lot of valuable information. The way you give advice is second to none, and I really appreciate your channel. Not just for myself, but for all the other men out there as well. Not only do you give good advice, but you also make people realize they're not alone and that this kind of stuff happens to a lot of men. I've got quite a complicated story, so I'll try to keep it reasonably short. The first time I went to Thailand, I was 22 years old, young, confident, and basically thinking I knew everything. I saw an advert in the newspaper saying, "Do you want to be a stockbroker and live in Thailand?" My friend and I immediately called the number, and within a few phone conversations we were on a plane to Thailand within 2 weeks of seeing the advert. When we arrived, we were picked up at the airport and taken to a 5-star hotel. It felt like a dream come true. But, you know the saying, if it's too good to be true, it usually is. Well, it kind of was. To be fair, we hadn't lost any money because the flights had been paid for. The next day, we went to work, and basically our job was calling Australian people, trying to convince them to invest money into commodities and the stock market. Something felt sketchy almost immediately. The manager there was this huge guy, built like a brick S-house. Apparently, he was ex-Special Services in Australia. We got about 10 minutes of training and then got thrown into a room making cold calls to Australians all day, trying to get them to invest. And from what I remember, nobody made any sales. Then, that very night, it was all over the news worldwide that people in Thailand were being arrested for boiler room scams, which I presume is exactly what we had walked into. Without even thinking about it, my friend and I just said, "We can't stay here, we're leaving." So we left immediately and headed down to Phuket with the tiny bit of money we had left. Thankfully, our parents sent us a little more money so we could stay out there longer. And that was my first experience of Thailand. Back then, this was the early 2000s. Phuket was completely different. Bars were still bamboo huts. Everything felt raw and untouched. It was incredible. Now one day, I got a massage from a girl who was around my age, maybe 22 or 23. She was really tiny, had pink hair, and had a child. I took a very strong liking to her, and we ended up spending about 2 weeks together. Honestly, I really liked this girl. One night we were staying in a hotel, and back then I used to keep my bum bag, or fanny pack as Americans call it, right beside the bed. For some reason, I suddenly woke up in the middle of the night and noticed my bag was gone. Immediately, I thought, what's going on? I got up and noticed her clothes were still there. So I walked toward the bathroom and opened the door. There she was. She was standing there with my bag open, literally in the middle of pulling out a 1,000 baht note. I was devastated. You can call me soft if you want to, but I genuinely got emotional that night because I really did like her. Now at that moment, It became painfully obvious she was stealing from me and probably didn't care about me at all. Strangely enough, I still stayed with her for the remaining week. At one point, we stayed at her room to save money. Her room was basically just a mattress in a tiny square box room. Under the bed, I found loads of old love letters and rent notes from different foreigners. I questioned her about them, and she just said, "Oh no, not mine, not my house." Yeah, right. So not only had she tried to steal from me, but it was obvious this had happened many times before with many different men. Another crazy thing was that her room was above a tattoo artist shop, and they asked me to take some sculptures back to England for them. At first, I agreed without really thinking about it, but at the last minute, I changed my mind and said, "No thanks, I don't know what's inside them." Looking back now, that could have gone very, very badly. Now, the second time I went to Thailand was even crazier. Back in the UK, I'd been involved in a car accident and suffered quite bad whiplash and back pain for a long time. I eventually got a payout from the insurance company to compensate me for lost study time and other issues. So, with the money, I decided to go backpacking around Southeast Asia. I spent most of my time in Thailand, travelling through the islands, doing all the touristy stuff, and visiting Laos and Cambodia. Now you have to remember, this was around 2004, and things were very different back then. Cambodia especially was rough. The roads were so bad that even sitting in a vehicle would give you whiplash all over again from the potholes. Thailand itself was still very underdeveloped compared to now. Even Phuket still had bamboo bars everywhere. It was definitely before the tsunami. Anyway, my friend ended up getting an ulcer while we were travelling. He ended up in hospital in Bangkok for a week, so I stayed in Bangkok to visit him every day, and that is where I met a Thai girl called Junior. I think she was only 19 at the time, younger than me. At first, I didn't really want to get into anything physical because I was cautious about health issues and all that sort of thing. But we spent more and more time together, and she genuinely seemed sweet and caring. Eventually, we ended up forming a relationship. There was always something strange though. She had this dragon tattoo on her arm. I asked her about it, and she brushed it off, saying, "Oh, it's just a dragon." But if you looked carefully at the white details inside the tattoo, it actually spelled out the name Andy. That was obviously her boyfriend or sponsor at the time. Eventually, she admitted she already had a boyfriend, and I remember thinking, well, this isn't exactly great. The mental gymnastics you go through trying to process this stuff is honestly insane. Still, there were no financial transactions between us at all. I stayed in her apartment, which was clearly being paid for by someone else, and she eventually told me, "I'm going to England for university soon." So I thought, wow, that sounds amazing, because it meant that we could continue seeing each other. But that turned out to be another lie. She wasn't going to university at all. Her sponsor was arranging a visa for her to come to England. Anyway, I eventually returned home and started my final year at university. A few months later, she contacted me saying she was coming to England and asked if she could stay with me. Now at the time, I still lived with my parents and only had my bedroom at home while studying, so I thought, well, why not? So she arrived in England, but never actually went to see the sponsor who brought her over. Instead, she came to stay with my family. Every day, I'd drive to university while she sat in the car, because I told my parents she was attending university too, just so it all sounded less weird. The entire situation was completely insane, but somehow my parents absolutely loved her. She cooked incredible food and helped my mum around the house constantly, even after they discovered she wasn't actually attending university and got angry about the lies. They still treated her like family. My stepdad was literally in heaven because he'd never eaten so well in his life. For them, it was like living with a private chef. Then one day, the police turned up because she wasn't living with the sponsor who had brought her to England. So she got deported back to Thailand. There were literally tears everywhere. My parents were devastated and immediately started trying to figure out ways to help her come back to England. Now, in my mind, we were still in a serious relationship. And the crazy thing is, my parents even started sending her money every month. Deep down, though, I knew something wasn't right. Eventually, it became obvious she was travelling around the islands partying with lots of different guys. Whenever I questioned her about it, she would deny everything because she'd constantly disappear and not answer her phone. Finally, she admitted, "Okay, I made a mistake. I've been with other guys." At that point, I said, "It's over. You don't love me." Now here's the ridiculous part. To prove that she loved me, this girl had tattooed my name in huge letters across her body. The problem is, I jokingly told her my nickname was Chunk, which wasn't true. So, above her backside, she literally had "Chunk was here" tattooed permanently onto her body. As far as I know, she still has it today, and she's even married now and living somewhere in Europe. Oddly enough, we still occasionally stay in touch, and there are no bad feelings anymore. Honestly, I don't completely blame her. When she got sent back to Thailand, she was depressed and alone. She didn't really have much family support, and most of her friends were girls with sponsors too. It's a shame because maybe we genuinely could have had a future together if she hadn't been deported, but I don't regret any of it. Imagine though how many men have invested in her over the years. Body count absolutely matters, in my opinion. I'm now married to a Chinese woman, and when I met her at 26, she had never been with another man. There are actual studies showing that pair bonding ability diminishes the more sexual partners someone has, and honestly, I believe it from life experience. Modern culture in the West pushes women toward this lifestyle, while simultaneously convincing men they're insecure if they dislike it. Apparently, if a man doesn't accept a woman having endless previous partners, he's insecure. If that's true, then maybe I'm the most insecure person in the world. Now imagine what happens in places like Thailand, where bar girls hear endless promises from lonely foreign men desperate for affection and emotional connection. Personally, I wouldn't trust many women from the current generation, regardless of culture. And honestly, I feel sorry for my kids growing up in this world. I wish you and your child all the best too. I hope your wife thinks things through, because a father is incredibly important in a child's life. I hate to say it, but I honestly preferred the old days in Thailand 25 years ago, when most bars were bamboo huts. Now, parts of it feel like Ibiza. It's become too busy and commercialised for my liking. Vietnam and Cambodia are heading the same way. Some areas of the Philippines are still okay for now, but eventually the same thing will happen there too. Anyway, my next story will be about a welder who is a ladyboy. I'm an engineer on power stations, by the way. Cheers, Dan.
Right, guys, I'm not going to stay on camera too long. That was a very, very long story. And just for your information as well, I've actually had a Thai woman tattoo my name, my full name, and my date of birth on her body right here 2 weeks after seeing her. And the relationship only lasted 2 months, and then it was over. And then she ended up getting a big machine gun over it to cover it up. Insane. These girls will do anything to try and reel you in. Right, guys, look after yourselves. Take care out there. And if you've got your own story and you want to share it on the channel, get your email sent in. thaitalkwithdan@gmail.com. Take it easy and ciao for now. Bye-bye.